Hey everybody, welcome to Dr. B's Science World. Dr. B's Science World. I'm glad that you stopped by today, and I'm looking forward to going through this with you as we learn how to write a lab report. During our virtual learning, we're going to utilize Google Slides as our platform for our lab reports. So the next couple weeks as we're learning how to write these lab reports, we're going to be using Google Slides as our platform. It's important to know there are 4 parts to our report. We're going to have a section design, a methodology section, a section for data, and a section for our conclusion. Now, what should be included in that design section? It's very simple. First thing we want to do is clearly state the problem or the question that the lab is answering. When I thought about the different labs that we've done over the years, an example that is clearly stated is, which paper towel will absorb the most liquid? And then in that same section, that same design section, you want to have background information that helps to support your question or problem. And good background information is going to include information about the topic, including questions that you would research before you write that hypothesis. We know that that hypothesis is an educated guess, a prediction, but it's very important that we understand that we should know something before we just write a hypothesis. So if I were doing an experiment to determine which fertilizer would grow my plants the tallest, I might like to ask questions about what is in the fertilizer, as well as special information about the plants that I'm using. Once I know that information, then I am able to do the final part of the design section, which will be the hypothesis. This educated guess, it's a prediction, should be a clearly written statement, clearly written out as a complete sentence, and most of the time, for our purposes, we're going to write those as an if-then statement. That if-then statement kind of represents a cause and effect. An example would be if I use Miracle-Gro on my rose bushes, then my rose bushes will grow faster. So using Miracle-Gro is the cause. The effect is the rose bushes will grow faster. The second section of our lab report is methodology. And the things that should be included in methodology are very important to the experiment and to the explanation of the experiment. So we want to include a materials list. And this is a complete list of all the materials that you're going to use during that experiment. And we put those on our document using bullet points. We do not have to write complete sentences when it comes to materials list. And then, of course, here's an example of a materials list. 2 beakers, 1 ruler, 3 feet of masking tape, scissors, water bottle, and 45 ounces of water. Along with the materials list, we need to have a complete set of procedures. Now, the procedures are super important as well, because if you have good procedures, if you have clearly stated procedures, then someone else could take your report, they could do your same experiment in the exact same way you did. These are always going to be action statements. They need to be numbered. Here's an example of some procedures. In beaker A, pour 3 ounces of water. In beaker B, pour 3 ounces of water. Add 2 ounces of lemon juice to beaker B. Pour the contents of beaker A on the rose bush. You see, I've listed clear action statements that guide us through our procedures. It's very important that you be detailed because you want other people to be able to do your experiment. The third section of our data, of our lab report, is data. What should be included in the data section? I say data, you say data. It's okay, however you wish to say it. You can list observations here. A simple way to list them would be in bullet point form and in third person. When we're writing our data up, we want to make sure that we steer clear of I. So an example of an observation that I might have seen during the data collection After pouring in the vinegar, the substance began to bubble. That's just a good example of a way to write an observation. This is also the section where you're going to have tables and graphs. Tables and graphs are just awesome visuals that help convey the data and results. There's a lot of people that may not want to read big, long paragraphs about your experiment, but they can quickly go through and they can look at your tables and graphs and they can see the data that you have collected. And you're going to always choose the type of graph and table based on the type of experiment that you're doing. Every graph doesn't work for every experiment. Every table doesn't work for every experiment. And you know your data can be both qualitative and quantitative. For most parts, tables and graphs, they're going to display your quantitative data because that has to deal with numbers. Also, we have the fourth section of our lab report, the conclusion. Super important because this is where it all comes down to it. After analyzing the data, now's the time to share whether the hypothesis was proven or disproven. You're going to write this in complete sentences, and this is where you're going to say whether your hypothesis was correct or incorrect. Here's an example. After the experiment, it was determined that our initial hypothesis was incorrect. Miracle-Gro did not have any impact on the rose bushes compared to the fertilizer that was already being used. Now, I can have this conclusion if my data backs it up. So those tables and those charts, they need to match whatever my conclusion is, because whatever the data shows, then that is what my conclusion has to be. I can't just change it because I want to. In order to be a fair, effective experiment, and for you to be an ethical, unbiased scientist, you must write your conclusion based on the data. Some other important things to remember as you get ready to do these lab reports. This is a reflection of you. This is a reflection of the work that you put into this science experiment. Your lab report needs to be completed using a professional slide theme. I'm not looking for cutesy things. I'm not looking for things that make me laugh when I look at it. I want to see professionalism in everything you do. The lab report should be free of errors, including spelling and grammar. Tables and graphs should be colorful, created with Google, and should be detailed. And then, of course, like I said, the lab report is a reflection and should represent the work that was done on the experiment. We're going to be working on these lab reports together, so I don't want you to be concerned. We're going to go step by step until we really understand how to do lab reports, but using this Google Slide format is going to be a great help to us as we continue to do virtual labs and create lab reports together. I'm glad that you stopped by today to learn about lab reports, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.